Avengers Endgame was a massive hit. Huge box office, 10 years of build-up to this incredibly huge payoff, and mostly the fans loved it. So why did Endgame suck? We're going to talk about that next on this special episode of The ProZone. Welcome to The ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So I was a huge fan of Infinity War. Massive fan. Love the movie. Nearly a perfect movie. But then they gave us Endgame. And Endgame was a hot mess. It was like a mishmash of a bunch of different stuff all thrown together on the screen, okay? And Mahler, a podcaster, I heard him describe it as a tangled bunch of Christmas lights. That's about right. It's all pretty and twinkly and full of nice images and pretty colors, but it's all knotted together in this just big mishmash.
Got a little knot here. Work on that.
So why? Why does Endgame suck? Oh, you're going to have the fans lose their minds. Oh, that's not, it's terrible. It made $3 billion. Of course it did. You had a 10-year payoff to a three phases of the MCU. It was a 10-year payoff. So you're going to get all the people that have vested interest in this for 10 years. I mean, you started watching The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man in 2008. And you're 12, you're now 22 years old, and you want to see that payoff. And then they give us Endgame. I mean, Infinity War left us with this most amazing cliffhanger, the cliffhanger of cliffhangers in movies. It was one of the greatest cliffhangers I've ever seen in my entire life, when almost everybody was dusted, they snapped out of existence. That was so cool. The theater was somber, and I couldn't. You could hear a pin drop when that ending hit. What happened? Well, Endgame went in the wrong direction. The writing was not up to par. Okay, so I'm going to break this all down. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the premise and what it should have been. Or what it could have been, I should say. And then we're going to go through the movie. This is going to be a very long series of videos, okay? And this is the first part. So let's go through this. I've watched Endgame 3 or 4 times. And every single time I've watched it, I found more and more that's wrong with the movie. I find more and more things that I don't like about the film. More things wrong with it. So let's start. Okay, we're going to go through all of that, but let's start with the premise. They had it set up. It was set up for the fans. It was spelled out, dude. You have Thanos, the villain that we've built up over 10 years, with mentions of him, with the people talking about the threat that he is. I'll talk about that in another video as well, okay? Because Thanos was a nice threat, where Doomsday, not really a established threat in the MCU, okay? But you have this great villain, Thanos, and in Infinity War, he's written so well, and his motivations are spelled out so incredibly well. A complex villain who, like most villains, thinks he's doing the right thing, but going about it the wrong way. That's just awesome. It's not a revenge story. It's not this typical super weapon laser beam hitting the planet that Marvel is very good at doing, and a lot of Hollywood movies are good at doing. It's an intricate villain with a complex reasoning behind what he wants to do that makes sense to him, like any sociopath. So, once he gets the stones and he snaps the finger of the Infinity Gauntlet and he wipes out half of the universe, there are certain people that are left alive. And the 6 that are left alive, if you pay attention, are Iron Man, Captain America, Banner/Hulk. Hulk wasn't coming out at that moment, so it was just Banner. And we'll talk about that later. Black Widow, Thor, Hawkeye. Those are your 6. Those are the original 6. And they all survived the snap. Okay? They all survived the snap. Kevin Feige liked to call it the blip. We'll talk about the blip later. I'm going to call it the dusting. Okay? My term is the dusting because they saw their friends turn to dust. We're going to go into that later. That's another problem with Endgame. So, at least after Endgame. But those 6 survived. Why? Why did the original 6 all survive? Well, the premise is set. There was a cosmic reason for that. The stones, they determined the outcome. Thanos said himself that it was going to be random, fair. That's what he wanted to do on Titan.
And when we faced extinction, I offered a solution.
Genocide.
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike. They called me a madman.
On Titan, he wanted to exterminate half the population, genocide, but do it randomly and do it fair, which was his intent on the use of the stones. Eliminate half of the galaxy, the universe, but do it fairly with no bias, right? Okay, so he left the choice to who was dusted to the stones. And the stones, the Infinity Stones that control time, control the whole universe and hold it all together, the Infinity Stones decided that the 6 original Avengers survived. And there was a reason for that. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm going, oh my God, that's the original 6 survived. There's a reason the original 6 survived. If you think about it, first off, if the original 6 survived, the Eternals didn't get involved, right? You know, people ask the question, why didn't the Eternals get involved? Well, the Eternals were told by the Celestials that they weren't allowed to go after anybody but deviants. So they kind of had to be kept out of it. That was what was explained in the Eternals. That was after Endgame was made. But easily could be said that the Eternals were like, well, we're staying out of it because we're supposed to stay out of it. Because that's the destiny that was determined by the Infinity Stones. And if the Infinity Stones kept the 6 Avengers, the original ones, together, that made me think Age of Ultron, when they're in the Avengers compound and they find out that Ultron's loose and Thor is pissed off, and he comes in and Stark has this exchange with Cap.
We're the Avengers. We can bust arms dealers all the live long day, but that up there, that's the end game. How are you guys planning on beating that?
Together.
We'll lose.
And we'll do that together too.
How will we do that? Together. Stark says we'll lose. Cap says then we'll do that together too. And that was echoed in Endgame.
I saw this coming a few years back. I had a vision. I didn't want to believe it. I thought I was dreaming.
Tony, I'm gonna need you to focus.
And I needed you. As in past tense. That trumps what you need. It's too late, buddy. Sorry. You know what I need? I need a shave. And I believe I remember telling Tony, alive and otherwise, that what we needed was a suit of armor around the world. Remember that? Whether it impacted our precious freedoms or not. That's what we needed.
Well, that didn't work out, did it?
I said we'd lose. You said, we'll do that together too. And guess what, Cap? We lost. And you weren't there.
That's the setup. That was the setup. The 6 Avengers were not together in in Infinity War when they fought Thanos. The way it broke down is on Wakanda, you had Captain America, Black Widow, Banner, not Hulk, in the Hulkbuster armor, right? Because Hulk was hiding. And then eventually Thor. Now, if you're paying attention, you had other people there too, but with those three, once Thor showed up, it tipped the scales. Now imagine if Hulk had been there, that would have been very different too, right? So we don't have the full Avengers yet. Also, you had Tony Stark on Titan, so he wasn't with the group. And then you had Hawkeye, who was at home with his family, and he was, retired. So the original 6 Avengers, they weren't together in the Infinity War battle in the first fight against Thanos. And they almost beat him. They almost beat him. Stark by himself with all those other people almost got the gauntlet away from Thanos on Titan. On Wakanda, they almost beat him because Thor had Stormbreaker in Thanos' chest. Thanos could have died. Imagine now if you had Hulk there, if you had Iron Man there with Captain America, and they were all fighting at the same time. So when all 6 survived after the snap, after the dusting, you figure that's destiny. The stone said we have to make things right. And by making things right, we keep the 6 Avengers together because that's who has to fight together to beat Thanos. The stones made the call. It was set up. It was laid right out. They laid it right out for us. It was perfect for Marcus and McFeely and the Russos to go, yeah, you know what? Let's take this home. Let's make sure the 6 Avengers get together and fight Thanos and finally beat him. And honestly, you had Thanos, who wasn't weakened by the first use of the gauntlet. He used the stones and it destroyed the gauntlet or damaged the gauntlet a lot. It didn't destroy it. It damaged the gauntlet a lot, but and he had the thing in his chest, but he survived. And he sat there on the garden in that planet watching the sun rise over a grateful universe. He was alive, and he was still strong as hell. He was only weakened in Endgame when he used the stones to destroy the stones and reduce them to atoms. And we're going to circle back to that in my shoulda, woulda, coulda segment. Things they should have done, things I would have done, things they could have done. All you got to do is get the 6 Avengers back together and make that the big fight. This time with Hulk in full form. Where were we going then? I thought we were going there. So where did they go? Well, we'll talk about that. I'm going to go through the movie. I figure it's better to go chronological so you can follow along. So through the film, we'll talk about each piece and I might break off little segments, but we'll go through bits and bits. You can watch along with me, argue if you want, that's fine. So there's your first setup. The 6 Avengers were left alive to fix the universe when they fight together to beat Thanos. It's a fat hanger right over the plate. But they didn't hit it right. Talk about everything else in part 2. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Matt Roberts. Know your goal.